the German caffeine shampoo.
Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. 2 sunny cities, 1 break.
This is The Breakaway. To those watching on Twitter, Facebook or YouTube, welcome along. Sir Bradley Wiggins is with us once again after spending a day on the motorbike, and Dan Lloyd here as well to go through the stage. It's Mike Tennyson who remains in the yellow jersey. Jumbo-Visma making it 2 from 2. And Sir Bradley, you are the time trial expert. All the other teams below Team Ineos pretty much on a level. Jumbo-Visma just in a different league today, though. How do you make up 20 seconds in a time trial of less than 30 kilometres?
Well, I think each rider played their part today. You know, it's about 8 riders really coming together as a unit. Team time trialing in the past, it was always about one rider trying to prove how strong they were at the detriment of the team. Nowadays, teams invest so much more time in going and studying the event, working out how they can go much faster, but go faster as a unit. And I think that's what they've done best today, really. It was technical in places, this course, but it was a very high speed. Certain sections were very high speed. And it's how you communicate with each other. It's how you communicate with the car behind, because the car, it saves you looking behind all the time as a rider. So the car will tell you things you can't see behind you. Everything you do in the line, you have to think about 6 riders back. It's like a domino effect. So one small movement from yourself is ricocheted further down and magnified by 10 or 12 times. So it's everyone thinking in that mindset, everyone thinking for each other, and that's what they did best today.
And they did it best by some margin as well. Let's recap on the top 10 from the stage today, because Jumbo-Visma beat Team Ineos, who had been in the hot seat all day, by 20 seconds. De Koning, Quick-Step, another favourite for the stage, in third at 21 seconds. And looking at that top 10, Dan, what are your standout performances?
I think Groupama FDJ will be very pleased with their 8th position. Thibaut Pinot said he came into this race knowing they had a very strong team, but to only lose 12 seconds to Ineos, I think they'll be celebrating that from a GC perspective tonight. But what is surprising is just the team on top, the margin that they did it by. We talked about how dominant that is to be 20 seconds ahead of a clash of teams that were only separated by 16. 8 teams behind them were separated by 16 seconds. So, I mean, they'll be celebrating for the rest of this 3 weeks, I think, Jumbo-Visma, after these first 2 days of the race. Absolutely incredible.
Well, Mike Tennyson's still in yellow, Bradley, but it's Stephen Kruijswijk who came here with the GC ambitions on that team. He started probably as an outsider, I think it's fair to say. Does he move closer to the bookies' favourites now?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's certainly got the chance of winning. I mean, he came close to winning the Giro a few years ago. He hasn't shown the consistency in that form from that Giro since then. But his team have set him up perfectly. They've given him the best opportunity. They'll carry this morale now for the next 3 weeks. And if they can continue riding as they have done as a unit, backing him, whatever happens now, this race has been a success for them. So there's almost no pressure on Stephen, only his personal individual success and the pressure he puts on himself. I think he's capable. He's certainly capable of a podium. That's how much of an open race this is this year. The win, it might be a bit beyond him, but it is a hilly race this year. It's a lot hillier than it has been, and I don't think a podium is out of the question.
We were talking immediately after the stage, Dan, about Mitchelton Scott. They finished in 11th, 41 seconds back. So essentially, Adam Yates, you're losing 20 seconds on Egan Bernal and Geraint Thomas. 21 seconds is a decent chunk on stage 2, isn't it?
It is, but when we're going to be talking in 3 weeks' time, after those trio of mountain stages that finish on stage 20, 20 seconds is just going to be nothing. And actually, that's changed in the team time trial over the years, because even actually 10 years ago, when you were riding at the Tour de France, Brad, and it was with Slipstream, I think,
yes,
you were down to 5 riders almost immediately.
Very much, yeah.
But that was probably twice the length almost of this time trial. And the gaps back then used to be humongous. And I think partly ASO realised that and reduced the distance and made them not quite so hard. But the teams are just much more of a level playing field.
Yeah, and what I will say, so back 10 years then, the French teams were almost a laughingstock in this event. They didn't invest the time in the bikes, the skin suits, as the other teams did. Now they've closed that gap, and they've put someone like Pinot in a perfect position, again, for a podium. I think the Tour de France, winning the Tour for him is a bit beyond him, but it just shows you how much the French have stepped their game up.
How much has the Tour changed then in recent years, Bradley? This is your first time back since winning it in 2012. What's your experience been of it in the last couple of days?
I think it's more stressful than it's ever been, certainly for the riders. I got a sense of that yesterday on the bike. You know, I think it's very little talking in the peloton. Teams tend to ride all together now within the peloton, so there's not a sort of splay of riders across the peloton. They start lining up from the start. So Ineos straight away yesterday, as soon as the break, they were second in the line from whoever was riding for the sprint. Further back, you've got Data Dimension. Everyone's lining up in their teams to be close to each other. You don't get kind of a few guys at the back just chatting amongst themselves. It's become one huge team time trial. And each team, it becomes very tribal, very territorial. Teams stick to themselves now, all within the peloton. So you get everyone's grouping together. It's become a very tactical affair, a very serious, very kind of... all the kind of chatting to your mates is done before this race now. This has become much more of a serious business.
Because when you won the Tour de France, Team Sky almost initiated that, I guess. They were the most serious team, the most organised team in the peloton. Do you think that other teams are now adopting the same practices?
In the modern day, Postal obviously used to do it, but certainly in modern day cycling, teams have looked at the success of Sky over the last few years and they've tried to replicate that. And what's happened now is you've got teams like Jumbo that have actually surpassed them in events like this, really. Other teams have also tried to do it. Mitchelton kind of came along many years ago with Orica Green Edge, with a very similar mindset from that track background. And they have paved the way. And, you know, whoever leads the sport, in any sport, the best team, people try to replicate what they do. And what it has done is it's made it so much more competitive.
Dan, you last rode the Tour in 2010. You've been back since then, but how do you think it's changed in the last, I guess, better part of a decade?
Well, I'd echo what Brad says, that there's just so much more pressure, I would say, on the teams and the riders. I mean, the budgets of the teams have gone up hugely in the last 10 years, and the sponsors want payback for that investment that they're making. So there's a lot more pressure, I would say, on every team and every rider at a race like the Tour de France. And it is ridden differently. Like Brad said, it was Team Sky, I think, that first started trying to ride in a line within the peloton. I seem to remember back in 2010 at the Tour of Oman. It was blooming annoying, actually. In fact, we had a game trying to make sure that they weren't together with their teammates and get them bumped off their wheels. But it's just so much more professional, I would say, now. The speeds are also going up down to the equipment. You know, everything's aero, everything's as light, down to the UCI's minimum limit. Every effort is made to go as fast as possible for the power that they've got in their legs. And so it's all just so much closer, so the crashes get even worse because you're going at a faster speed to begin with. I wouldn't actually want to be in the peloton, I don't think, these days. I mean, it felt fast back in 10 years ago when I was doing it, but I'd imagine it's even worse now.
Bradley, you have been in the peloton the last couple of days, although in a different manner to the manner in which you rode it. But what's that been like for you, being in the motorbike? I know you're really excited about doing it. How's it been? It's
been superb. I mean, it's been sort of a real honour to be that close to the action, really, and see it from the other side of the fence, really. I mean, nothing's really changed from the point of view. You kind of remember little things. I saw Dan Martin stop for a toilet break yesterday, 50k to go, and you kind of think, well, that's the last opportunity for Dan to stop, because if you stop any later, the pace is just too high that you can't get back. So you have to think ahead a bit. Shall I have a wee now, just in case we can't have another opportunity? And it's those things that you come flooding back, really.
Does it bring it all back then?
It does, yeah. I mean, so... And those things are sort of second nature to me, really. So I was saying to someone earlier, sometimes I want to say the obvious thing, thinking that everyone knows it. Like yesterday, we went through the feeding station, and I remembered Christian Nice always used to take my bag. So Christian, with his big German arms, would take 2 bags, and because it's not worth the risk of getting tangled up in the brakes or the wheel and crashing and breaking a collarbone. So little things like that. So the GC guy, there'll be a designated guy for Geraint Thomas that will take his feed bag and give it to him safer a bit further down the road. And not everyone would know that. So it's kind of what's second nature to me. Sometimes I've got to think as the viewer, maybe just say it.
It's
Are you
most
getting used to that switch? Pardon?
That's the most dangerous point in the race often, is the feed zone, because you've got people looking out for where their teams are and trying to go across the peloton. So as Brad said, it's safer as a GC rider to have somebody else do it for you. But I remember racing Paris Tour, a one-day race myself years ago. I grabbed the feed bag, and as I grabbed it, the strap kind of went round the handlebars of a Katusha rider, and for a moment I was the most powerful man. You know, he looked at me in fear, and so I sort of had to hand him the bag, and he unlooped it and gave it back to me. But
and the worst one, of course, is once someone's got their bag, if you're coming up the side of the peloton to take bags of food up to other people, riders, they just throw the bag. And if you're coming past that moment in time, you get a bag in your front wheel, you're down.
Are you getting used to that switch now then, Bradley, from being in the middle of it and thinking it's all inevitable and it's all obvious in your head, to being on this side and telling everybody at home what you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just it comes easy to me to sort of see what's happening. So if I just say it and it's not useful to anyone, or anyone takes it on board, then so be it. But I think there's no harm in just saying it, really. And I've got nothing else to do on the bike, so I might as well say it.
Might as well have a chat as you're going. Is there anything, Dan, you say you wouldn't want to be in the modern day peloton, but is there anything that you, watching from this vantage point, makes you think, you know what, I'd love to be doing that actually?
No. No. I mean,
Did you like bike riding?
I loved it. I loved it when I was doing it. No, I really, I wouldn't change anything about what I did. I loved every moment of the career that I had. But it was a lot of suffering, and for me it was a lot of crashing as well. To be honest, when I'm sat at home on my laptop, it sounds boring, but I look outside when when I look outside and it's raining, I'm so smug that I don't have to go out on my bike anymore, because I did enjoy it at the time, but I wouldn't go back to it now.
Would you like to complain on this part of the Tour de France that we've got long days and we don't always get our lunch, and it's a difficult old job, but yeah, it's slightly easier than riding your bike, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I actually love being on this side of the fence, you know, because it's we sat around last night, a few drinks with dinner and stuff. You can't do that as a rider. It's such an intense environment, this. The guys now will be away onto their buses, showered, get back, start getting their massage. Maybe eating at different times as well, because it's very rare now on the Tour that you can get the whole team together, because sometimes it's 10 o'clock at night before everyone's finished their massage, and so you tend to just sort of eat in pockets with certain riders that you only see at certain times. And although you're a team, it can be quite lonely, but at the same time you're spending a lot of time with the same people. That's quite a contradiction, but you know, you're sitting on these buses, and it is, you know, you're living in and out of each other's pockets, really. There's 8 riders now. They'll all be sharing a room with a grown adult for 3 weeks. It's a long time, you know. Obviously, Luke and G, that they'll imagine they'll room together, being Welsh. They get on great together. That helps as well, doesn't it, Dan? If you've got a good roommate that can keep your morale up over the 3 weeks.
Hugely, yeah. And they'll try to pair the people up that get on the best with each other, because it does affect your morale when you're with 3 weeks with the same person for 3 weeks in a room. I mean, you're so used to sharing rooms. It's only, you know, afterwards when I got booked a hotel by someone, I was on my own. I was like, all right, we're not sharing after the cycling world.
You get quite lonely.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt strange. I just never had that before. Every time I've been away was with a team, and I was always with another rider. But yeah.
It's the oddest concept about professional cycling. Anyone who's new to the sport always finds bizarre that you have the riders at the very top of their sport having to share a room with another grown man, but that is the sport in which we work. We are heading off from Brussels next into France tomorrow. What have we made of the opening weekend?
It's been superb. I mean, Belgium always do cycling well. With the celebration as well, 50 years since Eddie Merckx's first Tour win in '69. Eddie's been around here, you know, he's the legend of the sport, the greatest that ever lived, and I think it's been fitting, really, and a great opening weekend for it.
Has it lived up to the tribute it was trying to pay, Dan?
I would say so, yeah. Just the fans have made it as well, haven't they? How many people turned out yesterday and today to come and watch the Tour de France? I think it's been brilliant.
Yeah, we've had so many cheers as we've been sitting here. I don't know what's been going on, but certainly they're still having a party down in the streets of Brussels. All cheering Team Ineos. Yes, I'm quite sure that was the case. Anyway, we are on to France tomorrow. We are back to a more conventional road stage. It is the champagne stage of this year's Tour de France, but the riders are going to have to earn those bubbles. It is the first of quite a few stages over 200 kilometres, with short, punchy climbs loaded towards the cork-popping end of the day. Could be a day for the punchers, maybe a first French win on this year's Tour de France. You wouldn't be betting against the likes of Julian Alaphilippe anyway. Well, if you missed any of the action today, you can watch the highlights at 8 tonight on Eurosport 1, and we will be back at the earlier time of 10:45 tomorrow morning, and that once again is on Eurosport 1. Don't forget, of course, you can, from tomorrow, download the latest Bradley Wiggins podcast. Hear what he really thought of the opening weekend. Our first episode from the Tour de France, available from Monday. Well, it was a team effort at the Tour today. Ineos in the hot seat all day, but it was Jumbo-Visma who took the win and keep the yellow jersey for a second day. A dream start for the Dutch, the team with the orange heart, happy in yellow.